Welcome to Disgruntled Wargamer. I'm Tom, and I'm a little behind in terms of creating new content for this channel because life got complicated. It does that, but I've been up to a lot, like painting this Southern Kriels Brineblood Marauders army. For those new to Warmachine, Mark IV, the Brinebloods are trolls. Sentient, grog-swilling, fun-loving, rough-and-tumble trolls. This is a unique version of trolls as far as I know in fantasy, peculiar to the Iron Kingdoms and to the Warmachine game. First up, we have Admiral Boomhowler. She's basically in command of the Brinebloods and has a lot of versatility on the table. She boasts 3 battle plans, handing out the ability to see through and move through friendly models, or giving warriors some extra maneuverability or defense against charges. Her 2 spells further emphasize her combined army role as a leader who wants to bring both warbeasts and warriors by granting a warbeast a free move and attack when a warrior is killed by the enemy, and granting a warrior a bonus to melee attack and damage rolls and a bonus to armor. With 3 spell slots, she can play offensively using the spells Fury, Strength, and Black Spot, or Open Fire to increase the damage output of her army, or defensively by using Fortify and Rough Seas to make damaging her army more difficult. And she has more movement shenanigans with Tides of War. I think she enjoys any configuration of Warbeast and accepts all units willingly, but because of her feat, she may enjoy multi-box warriors more than single box. As far as her paint job goes, Dessa wanted a different shade of blue. From the typical Trollblood skin, she chose a seafoam color. The red and black was inspired by the late 1970s and early 80s Pirate Queen Emeraldus manga and anime. The octopus is spotted because that's pretty common and cool looking. On to Captain Firequill, who is the scout. That means you can play him at 30 points, which is the smallest of the Warmachine game formats. He is a gun mage, with only 2 mage-lock guns and a holdout pistol carried by his starfish, no melee weapons. With a field marshal ability that allows his warbeasts to ignore the defense and melee bonus, it's obvious that he wants to bring along warbeasts with ranged attacks. His spells emphasize that nature, with Energizer extending the threat of his warbeasts and his feat Heavy Rain giving them a bonus to ranged attack and damage rolls, and either a flare, which makes things not stealthy or hard to hit, or incendiary rounds to spread that fire damage. Tides of War and Black Spot are both good for increasing his army's output and for increasing his army's threat range. If he's running a beast heavy list, he'll want to bring along some galley crew and probably some other pig units to serve as fuel for his warbeasts, or to create a bottleneck with a threat of ambush. Marauder crew units help prevent things from charging the beasts, serving as a tar pit, while the dirge's mark target is helpful with increasing accuracy. Firequill's colors are similar to Boomhowler, with a pinkish counterpart. The starfish has a sheen, and Firequill's quills are a random blend of tropical island colors. I tried to work in some wet blending on the cloth and used a dark blue wash on his skin and leather. The guns are a gunmetal blue with brass and mahogany, with some silver highlights. Next, we have Captain Shadowtongue, who evidently used to be a subject of the Krix Empire, which accounts for his gaunt and grim appearance. He's got some battle group appeal, with a high arc stat, control range, and bird's eye, allowing his battle group to see through clouds, forests, and intervening models. His feat backs up his battle group efficiency by allowing warbeasts to use their animi without spending resources. The combination of dark rituals using warriors as arc nodes and revive, bringing warriors back from the dead, means that Captain Shadowtongue will want some warriors to hang about. Ghost Walk works well with the units, and Marauders will appreciate being able to move through terrain without penalty. It's worth noting that Shadowtongue has no melee or ranged weapons. That's probably fine, as his spellcasting ability makes up for it. Any spell in the spell rack seems right with Shadowtongue, and he'll probably get more out of Powder Keg, the offensive area of effect spell, than any of the other leaders due to his high arcane attack ability and his arc stat. Shadowtongue gets a lighter shade of the sea foam and a wonderful dark coat, multicolored feathers, and his raven is a dark blue with black shadows. Not shown today is Bragan Ragemonger, as I don't own him yet. That's the troll riding on a land shark. I'll cover him more when I pick up and paint the model, but he appears to be a battle group melee caster. He has a dice magic feat, which helps the whole army. Basically a critical hit machine for one turn. Moving on, we have some interesting solos in Brinebloods. I'm going to skip over the mercenaries who haven't been painted yet. First, we've got the Booty Boss, who's an interesting looking model. He's primarily a warrior support model with a gun. His battle plans stack nicely with Admiral Boomhowler's and fits well with either a pig-focused or marauder-focused list, increasing defense capabilities or damage output. First, mate Hargor Stormjaw, with his 2 flaming cutlasses, dual attack, and excellent stat line, is a standout combat solo. Bring him along with a Marauder crew to help increase their hit potential, and have Admiral Boomhowler give him Storm Rager to help him live longer and deal more damage. Another model I don't own yet is the Battle Brig, so we'll skip over that, and on to the Pig Cannon crew. 2 of them came with the starters, and they are an interesting point filler. Weapon crews used to be units in the older editions of Warmachine, but these guys are a 5 hitbox solo. That's interesting. They move slower, but have reposition and a long-range gun that can push models around. The slam is really neat because against models with multiple hitboxes, they could hit, slam, and possibly do some collateral damage to models behind. The cannon crew can be constructed a little differently from each other, and in this case I've used coral-like colors in their clothing and stubs to spice them up. The wood is a blend of paints in the mahogany, wood grain, and reddish-brown variety. The Pig Dirge is partially a support model with marked target, but it can float about and score terrain elements. It has a varial movement rule that allows it to pop out, drop a bomb, and potentially drop back after destroying something, depending on how far it travels when it initially moves. Only one comes with the starter boxes, but I'd probably like a second. You can bring 4 in an army, but lately I'm questioning the wisdom of spamming a model or a unit in the game. The Dirge reminded me of the black and white angelfish, so that's what I've done with the balloon cloth. The wood had the same treatment as the rest of the model I've done. Brass is straight up brass, while rope is a sand color with a sepia wash. Finally, the last of the solos, we have the Surgeon. He's another good model to bring with the Marauders, and especially with Shadowtongue. The Surgeon can heal or bring models back from the dead, and he's no slouch with his own tools of the trade, inflicting grievous wounds when he hits something in melee. Another good target for Storm Rager, I could see both the Surgeon and Stormjaw in a list with Admiral Boomhowler, flipping Storm Rager between the 2 models. I really like this model, but he seems more like a carpenter than a surgeon. Sometimes these careers blended, so who knows? He can probably cut wood as well as bone. I tried a dry brush sand color on the shark because that's how I remember seeing them in aquariums. The whelps all blend into the main model, but that's okay, I think, in this case. Now to the units. The Marauder crew is a 5 grunt unit with multiple hitboxes. Each member can take 5 damage before dying, and they still have a 30% chance at hanging on to life with tough. Their armor is a little light for Trollblood infantry, but these are pirate trolls, not the typical Trollkin champions you're used to seeing if you've played trolls in earlier Warmachine editions. Their damage output is quite substantial, with Gang providing a melee boost when units are positioned properly, and they enjoy a simple gun. Although their base stats are middle of the road, they can be tuned up with command attachments and with leader support. Before moving on with the other units, let's take a look at the Marauder crew attachments. In the starter boxes, you've got 2 Marauder crew units, and you can include one of the 3 included attachments with either unit. That means we've got an extra attachment hanging about, but that's probably okay. The Bosun carries a huge anchor, grants vengeance, and can boost their speed once per game. She's another excellent Storm Rager target with Admiral Boomhowler. The Bosun turns into an absolute terror. The Quartermaster carries a double-barreled deck sweeper. It's like a shotgun, and he can shoot with this or a grenade. The grenade doesn't seem like a good option for him, seeing as how it carries the cumbersome rule, so he can't attack with another weapon when using the grenade, but it is an AoE, albeit a weak one. Honestly, I'd ignore the grenade in most games and just go for the spray. The Quartermaster rules changed recently, and his current iteration allows him to extend the range of the Marauder guns once per game, and once per game he grants a bonus to attack and damage rolls. Very nice when the unit is too far for a charge or has something preventing them from getting into melee. They do have dual attack, so it's also quite handy when they charge and follow up with a ranged attack. Positioning is key with this strategy, as you want the unit to successfully charge, but you don't want models to be tied up in melee when they want to shoot. Finally, we have the Marauder Crew Tapper. I wish these guys would be allowed to attach to the pig unit, but it is what it is. This guy grants an attack bonus and prevents the unit from being knocked down. It also sports a reposition ability. It's super cheap, so I'd consider bringing him when I can't fit the bosun or the quartermaster. The Tapper works well with Boomhowler, as a no knockdown tough model that has auto healing for a turn poses a difficult problem for your opponent. The next 3 units are all pig units. The pigs are smaller trollkin, and where they lack in physical damage output, they make up for in typically higher defense and tactical opportunity. The boarding party sports fragmentation grenades, and with both their high defense and reciprocate rule, they're not going to get shot at unless the shooter is out of the frag grenade range or the shooter is sure to land a hit. Because if the shooter misses, the boarding party grunt gets to walk 2 inches and throw a grenade back at the shooter. Additionally, the boarding party has ambush, so they can appear at the sides of the table mid-game, suddenly attacking someone who got too close to a table edge. This is helpful because when your opponent knows this, they tend to push their models to the center of the table or risk losing a random solo or unit. It's worth noting that they do have amphibious. On certain tables, this rule means nothing, but the Brinebloods have spells which lay out puddles of water, allowing the pigs to take advantage of the water, raising their defense against range attacks even further, and they'll appreciate the occasional tide pool. All leaders in the army can bring that spell from the spell rack. The boarding party is painted like one of those red and white striped tropical fish, and their stubs are a coral pink. Next, we have the Pig Galley Crew, a strange set of hungry-looking grunts who don't care what meat's in the pot. They harvest living and undead models alike, healing friendly warriors when they kill. They can also remove fury from warbeasts and help manage resources. They can do this either through their special action or by making friendly models in the army food. In a large battle group build, I recommend bringing 2 of these units. The Pig Shockers are the last of the pig units, armed with electrified harpoons. Yes, these are harpoons wrapped in electric eels. They can disrupt warjacks. They also appreciate puddles of water and would benefit from anything that can increase their critical hit chance. Finally, we have the Pig Coxswain. This is a command attachment that grants inspiration and prowl. I think he best attaches to the galley crew or boarding party. His build is rather odd, not having a ranged weapon and still being wanted for his inspiration in units without melee weapons. Moving on to the Warbeasts. This is the Great Old One. He's a heavily armored troll with snacking and regeneration. He's harder to kill at range than at melee. It does have an Inkjet 2 claws, which are really good, although I think the Great Claw should be a range 2 instead of range 1. An odd rule on this model is the Gladiator rule, as neither claw includes a chain attack, critical, slam, or throw. For 18 points, it's kind of sad to see a rule that won't be used. If you do make a power attack, in order to take advantage of the +2 damage from Gladiator, you give up all other initials. That means losing the Ink Spray and 2 claw attacks for something that might only be a power 16 attack. The Crawling Chaos spell is interesting, but it requires the model to be base to base with an enemy in order to benefit. I think for 2 points cost, the spell should have a larger radius, like a 2 or 3 inch radius. Well, who would like the Great Old One in the battle group? All leaders can take Fortify to bump up its armor, but it already can't be moved, so that's a duplicate ability on the old one. Firequill does the most for him, turning him into a gun platform that doesn't care about being in melee when things attack. The old one's utility is hampered a little by the big claw not being 2 inches and being saddled with a Gladiator rule that probably won't ever be used. It could stay at 18 points and trade the Gladiator for a 2-inch melee, and then maybe I could make an argument to include it in lists with Ragemonger or maybe Boomhowler. The Deepborn Dire Troll, shown here with the Spearback, Hammerhead, and Shark Skull Gauntlet, is a very interesting heavy warbeast. The Cantankerous head is probably the most useful, with Rage, but Floodwaters could also be good, and Firequill would probably like one with the increased rat and recoil. As far as weaponry goes, the Hammerhead is my favorite looking, but each weapon has its own utility, with each leader being able to capitalize on different builds. I'm using 2 shades of the color shifter paint for the armor, plating, and spines, quills, whatever. One is a silver purple and the other is a copper green. The shark was a ton of fun to paint. The reef troll, this turtle-looking thing, can be built as a ranged or melee brute. Far Strike is super handy for Firequill, and you can totally build a full melee or full ranged warbeast. The modular magnetic parts are amazing in my opinion. These 2 reef trolls are painted using the same scheme, with the seafoam skin and 2 shades of color shifter paint. Thanks for joining. If you liked the video, let me know in the comments if you want to see more videos like this where we go through armies just a little bit.